Well, hello, friends. I have been laboring under a misapprehension, and I want to talk about that today. So, for a long time, I have told everybody who would listen, I hate editing. I just hate it. And because I didn't like editing, I made it my goal to write the best book possible in the fastest amount of time possible. That is to say, I want perfect copy the first time. I made that my mission, and the result was that I've gotten pretty good at turning out clean copy the first time, copy that clearly conveys my intent and doesn't need a lot of editing. But then I was talking to some other authors, and I realized that my understanding of editing was actually completely inaccurate. See, there are two different things that you can do with a manuscript if you want to make changes to it. You can either edit that manuscript or you can rewrite it. And for a long time, I conflated the two. I thought that editing and rewriting were the same thing. And so mentally, I had this major block because I was like, why would I go in and rewrite all of my words? Like, why would I write something the first time and then go in and rewrite the whole thing? But when you talk to authors, especially authors who are in the traditional world, you often hear this exact sentiment. I'm on my third revision. I'm on my fourth rewrite. I'm on my sixth rewrite. And I think it's really important, and I failed to do this for a long time, but I think it's really important to make a distinction between rewriting and editing. Even though we often talk about them as the same thing, they're really not. And a lot of my resistance to editing came from my incorrect understanding that rewriting and editing are the same. So let's make the distinction, and then let me talk about why it's important to make that distinction. So rewriting is a full rephrasing of a passage due to the passage not accurately conveying or communicating what you want to say. So, for instance, if I were to type up an email and then I were to reread my email and be like, ooh, that does not say what I want it to say, right? I am not clearly communicating the thing I'm trying to get across to my reader. And then I go in and I change all of the words and I change the structure itself. That is rewriting. Because I am trying to convey the thing or communicate something to my reader. I failed the first time. I now have to rewrite it so that I can succeed, hopefully, the second time. That is different than editing. Because editing is simply adjusting word choice or sentence structure to clarify or otherwise improve the thing that you're trying to communicate. You're not actually changing the meaning of the words. And as I have understood the difference between rewriting and editing, I've discovered that I actually really enjoy editing. And so this task that I have, been pushing off always, I don't want to edit. I don't want to edit. I don't want to edit. I've come to understand that, actually editing is really fun because all you're doing is tuning. All you're doing is, making more efficient. You're communicating the same thing. You're not changing the thing you're trying to communicate. Whereas with rewrites, there's an acknowledgement that you failed to communicate what you wanted to communicate the first time. And so you go back in and you rewrite a passage and you say, okay, does this say what I want it to say? Does this convey the feeling that I want to convey? And then you say, okay, no, all right, let me go in and let me rewrite it again. And I think that the reason I don't like that idea, the reason I have so much resistance to it, is that, and I don't want to come across as arrogant here, but I communicated what I wanted to say the first time. I pretty much always communicate what I wanted to say the first time. Now, that hasn't always been true, though. And so I think rewrites are helpful, and rewrites are most helpful at the beginning of your author career. There were multiple times when I've gone through and I've rewritten passages of a story because I realized upon reading it or upon somebody else reading it that it didn't accurately convey what I wanted to say. But as time has progressed, that happens less and less and less. And I've discovered that light editing, just going in and tweaking words here and there, is sufficient. Where I think that it's important to understand this distinction, though, is that sometimes we get trapped in a particular mode of writing. I know I do. And I constantly have to re-examine, reevaluate, and try to figure out, okay, am I doing this thing because it is the best thing? Like, do I take this action because this is the best action, or am I taking this action because it's comfortable, because it's familiar, because I know it? I have multiple writer friends who have either in the past or currently gotten stuck in this idea that you constantly have to rewrite. That the first time you communicate something, you are not communicating it well enough. That may have been true when they started writing, but by now their writing is clear enough, it's direct enough that they are accurately communicating what they wanted to say, and rewriting it has just become this sort of bad habit that stalls them, that makes them procrastinate. A lot of people don't like the idea that they could be procrastinating even if they're writing a lot, but it's the reality. And I know I'd recently did a video on the importance of finishing things, getting done, and that comes in here as well. So I think that to sort of sum this up, I think it's always wise to examine the things we do and understand where the value of the action is, and understand when we're just sort of performing rote routines as opposed to taking actions with high value. And this rewriting versus editing is one of these actions that can be valuable, but can also just be rote and routine. Change for the sake of change is pointless, right? It's just stalling. And so if you find yourself constantly going in and rewriting your passages, it may be a sign that you just don't have the confidence you should in your writing. Now, some people I know use a progressive rewriting process to clarify thought because they feel like they can't get their thoughts out in a cohesive manner the first time. And that's okay. For some people it is helpful. But what's not helpful is convincing yourself that if you don't rewrite a passage 3, 4, 5, 6 times, that it's not going to be good. That's a pretty much worthless thought. So if I were to pick an action step, it would be to encourage you not to rewrite, but instead just to edit. Then find somebody to give your writing to, ask them to read the passage, and then explain to you what you were trying to do or what you were trying to communicate. If they don't get what you're trying to say, then you go and rewrite. But if they do, then you say, great, and you let it be what it is.